Hello everybody and welcome to the first of many videos of explaining how to craft in DragonFlight. The way that this series is going to be worded out is that at the very beginning we're going to explain the basics for every single craft and then eventually go into the advanced. But I've spent the last month and a half making a 53-page spreadsheet, which I'm still not going to show you guys, but I'll show you guys the script that I've been using in the description. After this video is done, but there's a lot to crafting. Crafting is completely different in DragonFlight, so much so that all the icons even in crafting have been changed. You can see that both alchemy and engineering are different icons now. The big thing with this is that there's a million new things about crafting. The first thing that always comes to mind is, how exactly is this different from crafting in Shadowlands to crafting now? Well, first and foremost, you're not crafting any legendaries, so there's nothing like that going on. However, crafting has become significantly difficult in the fact that you have to end up making multitudes of certain things in order to get your skill up, and your skill now also pushes over to how the quality of your item can be created. But that, I feel like, is going to be something we'll talk near the end of this video. This is going to be a very long one, despite the fact that this is called Crafting in DragonFlight Basics. That's why there's air quotes in the thumbnail. It's not actually the basics, basically. Wow, that sounded really cliche. First thing we're going to talk about for DragonFlight crafting is that there are now qualities, which means you have to make quality gear using quality materials. The quality materials rank up from 1 to 3, and the crafting of certain items can rank up from 1 to 5. Bronze being the very beginning, and I'm going to say probably platinum is what I'm going to say. No, platinum would be 4, I'd say. So probably like, I mean, I word it as tier 1 through tier 5. So we'll go with tier 5 being like diamond. We'll say diamond is tier 5. Platinum is tier 4, gold is tier 3, silver is tier 2, and bronze is tier 1. So when we talk about this, I'm going to say tier 1 through tier 5, even though I think it's epic, rare, common, normal, etc. Items are usually ranking from 1 to 5. Or 1 to 3, pardon. So materials, much like getting a certain vial, is going to be a 3-tier vial, whereas getting a certain alchemy reagent like an herb is also going to be tier 3. However, you can make things that turn out to become tier 5. For example, I go to the alchemy stone and you can see that I've listed a bunch of tier 3 based items that can turn it into a tier 4 or a tier 5 item. This signifies the percentage chance, which is increased by not only your actual skill level, but by certain external properties such as inspiration, which we'll talk about later. For now, we're going to still talk about the materials. There are many new materials coming DragonFlight. As with every expansion, there is always going to be a new set of materials. Don't be terribly surprised if it's materials you've never heard or seen before, because Draconic Vial rank 3 is something you haven't seen before versus Crystal Vial, basically. It's always been tier 1. There are some items that aren't going to have tier-based things, much like feathers or cloth. Some cloth will still be tier 1 or tier 2, tier 1, tier 2 being the rarity of it, being wilder cloth is green, or you can run into feathers, which will always be just a basic quality of 1. However, these will not affect the quality of the craft that you're making. The only thing that changes the quality of the craft you're making is the quality of the items that you're putting into the equation. So first and foremost, with all these new materials, there's actually quite a bit, because DragonFlight is a very big expansion, and there's going to be a lot of new things in DragonFlight. You could already see here with the hides, there's about 7, maybe 8 different hides now, which range from being common hides to more common hide, to rare hides, to even rarer hides that come in multiples of smaller bits, much like crystalline fur, that you can use from skinning, which turns to be very important down the line. Now, we can also talk about what exactly do these crafting materials do when it comes to using a tier 1 to a tier 3. The first thing we'll talk about is the difference between using a tier 3 to a tier 1 herb. As you can see here, I have Ominous Draconis, which is a tier 3 herb collection, actually, because you use herbs to make this. We'll talk about it later. And you use this to end up creating either a tier 3 or a tier 2 item. Now, consumables on the bright side are actually leveled up to only be tier 3. So this includes sharpening stones, files, potions, leather kits, I imagine. And I think enchants are also going to be capped at rank 3. Only things that are usually rank 5 are armors, PvP armors, weapons, staves, books, and not cauldrons, thank God. Because after the crafting on the beta for so long, making cauldrons was terrible. Absolutely terrible. So there's multiple ways that you can make a potion extremely strong or extremely weak. At the very beginning, when you're crafting, most of your potions are going to be rank 1 because you're going to have no item, you're going to have no skill level, you're going to have no items that increase your, your profession strength, and you're going to have no finishing reagents to end up making it even stronger at the increased difficulty. At the very beginning, though, there are several statistics you want to look out for. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Multicraft, crafting speed, and inspiration. Hang on. And we're back. Sorry about that. I had the hiccups, and it's not going to make the video any easier if I did. Next, we're go and talk about some of the statistics, like we already talked about. So, multicraft, crafting speed, resourcefulness, and inspiration. In reality, if you're a crafter like me, you don't have to worry about crafting speed. And as for resourcefulness, that's basically the amount of materials you use, as well as the amount of materials you'll get back from making a craft. So resourcefulness is purely up to you. Inspiration and multicraft are the two things you really want to look out for, specifically inspiration. Inspiration pushes the ability to make it to where you could have better and stronger items, as well as more potent items. So for example, if your inspiration is 40%, you have a 40% chance to make something that can only be a tier 2 based potion to become more like a tier 3 potion. That 7% inspiration is basically reflective upon this bar here and changes as you end up having a change in your resourcefulness. Resourcefulness can be boosted in several different ways, one of which, as an alchemist, you can make potions that increase your resourcefulness for 1 hour that act such like a file. On top of that, you can also have accessories and tools that will increase that profession strength. And finally, there are feasts that also increase your crafting-based skills through cooking. So cooking is going to have a use even for crafters in DragonFlight, which is very, very important. Next, we can go ahead and talk about what exactly is the recipe difficulty. As you can see here, this bar is considered the recipe difficulty bar. This difficulty increases or decreases based on what materials you put into the craft. So for example, if I were to use a tier 1 vial, it would go down, but since I'm maxed alchemy, it doesn't really go down by that much. As you can see here though, the highest quality you could go to for any potion is tier 3. So you can actually negate some of the quality of your potion by using a tier 2 vial and still be able to get the same. Then you could use a tier 1 vial and you could still get the same as well. Inspiration is also based on what amount items you use, as well as, whatever quality you follow it up with. But as you can see here, depending on your level and what alchemy items you put into it, it will end up dictating the strength of your potion. Multicraft, again, is something very important if you're like me and you want to craft a million things at a time. In reality, the way that you could look at it is that if you're trying to craft for a guild that's doing Race to World First, which, by the way, I'm still looking for a guild to craft for Race to World First, Multicraft and inspiration is your way to go. However, if you actually want to end up making things really quickly, you got raid in 30 minutes and they just need the potions done. Multicraft and crafting speed. Basically the S tier when it comes to getting the product out and done. Most important though, it is inspiration and multicraft are the two primary focuses you ideally want to look at when it comes to crafting at a recipe difficulty level. Now, recipe difficulty can be boosted by several different methods, one of which is being how high your skill is. If your skill is 100, the recipe difficulty could change. If your skill is 0, your recipe difficulty is probably pretty low, which means you have a very low chance of crafting something high tier. But the way that recipe difficulty also works is that when you infuse something with a finishing reagent, it will increase its item level while also increasing the chance that it could become something better tier-wise. So say, for example, I'm trying to make an alchemist stone, but I want it to be a tier 4 and I want it to be a 402 item. So right now an alchemy stone with no finishing reagents is 389. If you end up making it at max quality, which I have one on my character right now, it becomes out 309 still anyway, which apparently this is not my max quality one. I definitely thought I made a max quality one. I can't tell where they are though, because I can't, for some reason, I can't see anything. Oh, I see. I made a lot of blue ones and not a lot of purples. Okay, I see. That's why I can't see it. Well, that's not why I can't see it, but if you end up putting a certain kind of finishing reagent into it, it increases its difficulty and makes it a lot harder. As you can see here, the Illustrious Insight increases it by 30, the skill. So your skill could be 100, but if you end up putting this in, you're crafting at a skill level of 130, which will increase the quality of the item based on the strength of it, making it a 402 item or something beyond that. There's also extra bits you could put in, like Brute Salt, which increases inspiration by 50 and crafting speed by 20, or inspiration by 50 and multicraft by 45. This is something that you're going to want to focus on as well when you come further down the line, is finding these extra finishing reagents that allow you to multicraft things at a much higher potency. There's actually one for cooking that makes it to where you can make 200 of something in one cook. However, it is on a daily recharge, so I highly advise that you make cooking on every single tune, so that way you can end up making it to where you can make multiples of each food at 200 quality, which includes feasts. Don't be telling anybody that. This is still the basics, however. So anyway, now that we've kind of gone over what skill level, crafting level, and inspiration means, while the following stuff on top of that, we will go ahead and talk about... Oh, pardon. Now I got the hiccups again, or I got burps. I got big burps. Sorry, I am scrolling down I'm scrolling down my list of notes here. So let's go quickly into depth on what each of the crafting crafting stats. There we go. We'll go quickly into the crafting stats. So for example, or for explanation, resourcefulness, with this skill you have an X percentage chance, which in my diagram that you won't see, it's 15%, of recovering a small amount of components when crafting. You can't decide how much or which amount is saved, however, so you will get something back, but it could be you get the crafting reagent back instead of the crafting material that is like the tier 3 bar or something. Crafting speed. And kind of self-explanatory. You have a certain percentage that increases your crafting speed by a certain percentage. Multicraft is just as it sounds. You have a higher chance of crafting multiple things at once, much like in BFA, where if you used a alchemy stone from the Nazjatar zone, you can end up making... Actually, I think it was just from the very beginning. You can end up making a multicraft of multiple things. So very straightforward on that one. There are also 3 secondary profession stats. Finesse, which increases the chances of getting a little more of the main reagent when harvesting, which comes from harvesting. Perception, which increases your ability to discover rare components when harvesting. So this is something I actually want to talk about very quickly while we're talking about this secondary stat. Perception makes it to where you can loot the rare at any point in time within your level. So say you're level 1 harvesting, or your level 1 harvesting skill of some sort, say mining, herb, or skinning. Any of those 3. I think disenchanting might work too, but I highly doubt it. Say you're any one of those 3. If you're level 1 and you have something that increases your perception already, say an incense, which is also a new cooking item, or you put a crafting material on, or you have crafting gear on right now, say you made a mining equipment on your blacksmith, and now you're leveling your jewel crafter, and you have mining on your jewel crafter, you put the equipment on, you run around, you harvest while you're leveling, you get the rare materials regardless of what level you are. So there's that as well. And then there's deafness, which increases your harvesting speed. So not only is there already an enchant that comes into DragonFlight that increases your harvesting speed, there is now deafness, which is also a tie-in to that, which doubly increases your crafting speed. Very important stuff. Very important stuff. All right, now quickly we can go into the tools and gear. Jewel crafting, or alchemy, doesn't have any gear that you can make, that you can put on yourself, so we're just going to go ahead and talk about it here in these slots up at the top. As you can see, there's 2 profession accessories and 1 tool. So these profession accessories are also things that increases your skill as well as any specific thing in particular. Say I wanted to get more resourcefulness out of crafting, then I would end up using an engineering tool, which I can make and then turn into something that makes it to where I can get some materials back from making engineering, which, in my opinion, resourcefulness for engineering is something you're going to want to do. You could do that on both your tools or your accessories, though I believe it's most effective on a tool. Crafting accessories are usually something along the lines of it will have more inspiration or more crafting speed on it, while tools will have more resourcefulness as well as any of the secondary stats. Tools being the mining pick or the blacksmith hammer, that kind of stuff. These come in all 5 of the rare qualities, I believe. You can go all the way up to 5, but I've only seen it going up to 3 so far, which actually increases based on specializations. Now let's go into the specializations page. Again, this is still the basics. I don't want to go into the advanced tactics immediately today, because this is already a 16-minute video. Next, we can go into the specializations. There are some specializations that have 4 specializations, while others have 3, and most gathering professions have 2. Immediately, I could talk about both leatherworking and, I don't think tailoring has it, but leatherworking and blacksmithing both have 4 specializations, 2 of which being because blacksmithing has consumables, leatherworking also has consumables, being armor kits, blacksmithing with weapon stones. Again, sorry, Max, they didn't get rid of them. There's also oils still for alchemists, so they didn't get rid of them. They're still here. Right off the get-go, you can see within specializations, I've actually maxed everything except for here, just to have experimentations. When you're crafting, you will always get a specialization point for your first ever craft, as well as artisan's metal, which is used to make very specific equipment. But the thing is, your first craft only rewards you artisan metal, which means once you make that first craft, you can't get more artisan metal. So there's no way to get metal back quite yet. But it's a very important material that comes from not only crafting via specializations, but crafting a new item every single craft. So going into our specializations here, at least for alchemy, because this is a very important one, but I will cover alchemy in its own separate chapter. Alchemy is very important because potions and phials are different now. Phials are the equivalent of you drinking a flask. Potions are still the battle pots. And each specialization has multiple ways to improve a baseline craft. So for example, at the very beginning, Potion Mastery, you can learn non-combat potions last longer. That's the very first specialization for unlocking it. Putting 1 point in it, you get this immediately. That's already a bis spec. Like, almost every main tune is probably going to be an alchemist when you're in raid, because that buff alone is the strongest buff in the game. Following that, you get more inspiration when crafting, learn another sub-line, you can reclaim more potions, etc., more resourcefulness. When you come from the Potion Mastery, Phial Mastery, same kind of story. Dragon Phials last 30 minutes longer, which means you could drink one and you get 45 minutes out of it, and then you can drink another one, you get 45 minutes out, or wait, no. You drink one, you get an hour out of it, you drink another, you get 2 hours out of it. Unless it takes double charge, then you don't need to worry about drinking it a second time. But Phial Mastery basically works along the same lines as Potion Mastery. You can learn extra sub-specs, which turns into the air-formulated phials. You can have every sort of phial that lasts a little bit longer, while you come down to this lower line, which increases your multicraft and crafting speed with certain phials. So each side has either your potency or your multicraft. Same thing with Potion Mastery. Multicraft, potency. Also, breakthrough. That's another thing. Alchemy has it to where you could discover new potions if you don't have the recipe, which is this recipe all the way at the top here with Dragon Alchemical Solution, Ammonium Draconius, and Artisan's Metal, which you make Draconius Solution with burning potions, basically. You reclaim potions and turn it into that. Again, no idea where you get more Artisan's Metal, so I can't really help you out there. And then Alchemical Theory, which in general is continual inspiration and resourcefulness towards all alchemy creations. Following suit, the same thing with Multicraft over here. You can continue to multicraft multiple reagents and incenses, which also come from alchemy and not just cooking. So specializations are very important, and I advise that when you look at making your specialization, read it thoroughly and read all of your extra tabs, because at the very beginning of the expansion, you will have very, very limited amount of points. And you don't want to throw your points in the wrong place, because I do not think there is a respec, unless that's what this is. Yeah, there is not a respec, so good luck with that. Excuse me for a moment. These potions can also be covered through work orders. However, work orders have yet to be tested, so I don't want to throw out anything about work orders just quite yet. And I think that is pretty much the basics of crafting, which is quite unfortunate, as it's been a 20-minute video and that was not my plan. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, this was just the basics. There's probably a lot of stuff I still missed, because the advanced stuff is whole different side. I didn't tell you what the crafting agents look like when you come and like have any leveling. Like, I didn't tell you anything about philosopher's stones. I didn't tell you guys anything about what all the new materials really are for enchanting. Like all the rousing airs, like moats are back, basically. Moats are back. You have to have these world quest items called Titan matrices that increases the recipe difficulty, which turns an item into a 402. You can see here that a 382 is the highest you can make, which requires level 70. But you can use one of these matrices to make a 64 level item instead, which also is something you can make to make your equipment better when you make equipment. Missives are still here. You have healing in parts as well. Like, you could put things that make it to where it heals you, just like the cipher equipment, basically. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's still here. Increasing recipe difficulty, giving you 50% more potion time while in DragonFlight. Primal Chaos, which is actually something I will talk about real quick. Primal Chaos comes from, at least from the data that I've collected so far, literally only comes from running Mythic Plus dungeons. When running a Mythic 0, I did not see any Primal Chaos drop. And Spark of Ingenuity, I believe, comes from Raid. Artisan's Metal, like we've already talked about, comes from making a craft for the first time. You get 5 per unique craft. After the first craft, no more. No idea where it goes. No idea what happens to it. Liquid Courage, I also have no idea where that comes from. Oh, I see. That resets the thing. So that doesn't exist. That's actually just for us to practice with. So with that being said, Primal Chaos, very rare thing. You only get it from Mythic Plus dungeons so far. Maybe you'll get it from World Quests, who knows? But with that being said, thank you so much for watching this very beginning basics video, and stay tuned as the advanced video won't be out very soon. It'll probably be out tomorrow, because for some reason I am hacking up a storm, and I do not know why. So I'm gonna go drink some water, maybe reset, and start the next video afterwards. If not, expect the advanced video to come out tomorrow, and then after that, we will go into each and every profession with utmost detail as much as possible. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time for some more World of Warcraft action. It's Party PD, signing off. Also, you know, again, I'm still looking to craft for a Race to World First guild, so if anybody has any connections, you know, hit me up. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.